Basement, level vibes with another one, straight up, blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and call.
Mr. Watts, he's armed himself shots. Watch it, tear gas. Live rounds. Also, I can see that.
Just for Quendon! The man is a boxer, man. Why can't put in a boxer, man, to do that?
But since my question there is no, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me.
Right? No, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me.
You gotta listen to me too.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Right across Guyana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
When they come to the communities, whether it is in Berbice or Essequibo and Linden or in South Georgetown or Agricola or in Ennore or Port Morant, the people of Guyana should treat them as illegal. I said they should walk behind them, chase them out.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right. Hey, guess what? Good evening and welcome to the numbers. Well, the numbers as in 107.1 FM, right? The digital numbers, in fact. And my name is Mark Benjab. Welcome to Straight Up. We're going to rock and roll this evening. We have J.R. Crawford all the way on the quarantine. I think he just, J.R. is into birds now, We will talk a little bit about his bird business, and you guys got to support him. We're not certain what has been happening with him and horse racing and so forth. Many of you know he is the chairman of the board for Alnis, that is Crawford Racetrack, right? Named after his grandfather. His grandfather's name, I believe, was Ryan Crawford, and that's where his brother Ryan, Ryan Crawford got that name from. So I got to ask JR, what's happening with the racetrack and why no business, man? Not even Gymkhana. We could invite a couple of those folks in the install regime to take the place of some, those animals that run a Gymkhana, right? All right. Anyways, my name is Mark Benchap and welcome to Straight Up. Thank you all for sharing the link. I don't know why the operator Lemon, who's back on the job, mind you, he has been out for a while, but he's back. He's hoping to just get a night here and there, make a quick couple dollars, and he's gone his way. That's it. I have attorney other than J.R. Crawford with us. We have a packed house tonight. We have an accountant, we have a businessman, and we have a lawyer. Oh, yeah, a lawyer with us this evening. Shalon Washington. She's no stranger to you guys. I want to ask her about the divorce rate, man, right? I want to ask her some of the criminal cases that she's been covering. I know she's been busy out in Buffalo dealing with a situation where a young college student, a university student, a real university that is, not those Moko University that Irfan said he attended at IFLAT or wherever, but this young man was murdered in Buffalo. I'll ask her some questions about that as well. And we have accountant Wayne Caesar. We'll ask him what's happening in Guyana. But before we get to them, and if the operator can just remove this goon that's on the right of the screen, just please, Lemon, take that goon off of the screen. Good evening and welcome to Straight Up. Good to see you guys back, right? Lots of you have been missing in action. Some of you have been saying that I have been missing in action. I don't know, but it's good to be back. And let's begin. This controversial issue right now is what Ogunsi said or what Ogunsi didn't say. And I said to somebody that the PPP is notorious when it comes to these things. They love to twist things around. Words, that is, mind you. And so they love to twist words around in order to appear as though they're victims, that they're political victims, and that people are after them and people are planning all sort of things. That's the PPP. They are notorious for those sort of things. And they love to twist people's words around. In 2002, or maybe late 2001, I remember when the black clothes was rampant, the murderous black clothes who were out killing on behalf of the then regime, the PPP regime, and you know who was head of the regime back then. But the notorious black clothes police were out there killing people, murdering people, extrajudicial killings and so forth. And the then commissioner of police was Larry Lewis. And I asked a question in somewhat rhetorical way, that with the rampant killings, mainly of young black men, the question, mind you, because you got to break things down for these folks in the PPP, the install regime, you got to break things down for them. They have small minds, mind you, right? And so the question back then was, what if the police were to, in the reverse, when Larry Lewis was the commissioner of police, the question was whether Larry Lewis was going to like if the police turned on him or not. That was just a question. It wasn't advocating. It wasn't saying go out and do that. No, I wouldn't do that. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and we don't do those sort of things. We are not violent people. I swear, we're not. But then again, from Jehovah's Witness, I went and Clapham and all sort of things. Crawford would know these things, right? And so every time you speak, and we speak the truth, they love to twist things around. But back in 2001, 2002, when I said that, they became afraid, of course, when you say things that could, you know what I mean. And then they slapped me with a charge of conspiracy to commit murder. The lawyer is on with us. Conspiracy to commit murder on Larry Lewis? This is the same Larry Lewis who was sitting commissioner of police, who admitted to me that so-called businessmen, those corrupt businessmen, offered him and suggested to him, you want me to take your revenge up for you? Just imagine. And that is over 20-something years ago, how corrupt that country is under the PPP regime. It's worse now. Don't be fooled. We're not seeing the killings by the police and so forth. At least we're not seeing it publicly. We don't know what they do behind the scenes now. I'm not saying that they do, but I'm saying we just don't know what they do. And so Ogunsi said something almost similar. He asked a question, because that is what the PPP is notorious in doing. They love to control things. But this is what Jack Deal said about the armed forces, about the joint services. This is what he said.
The executive is dominated by senior ex-policemen and ex-soldiers. As they've done, when they come into your homes and start kicking you down, the doors down, and when they come after you, if the people, they're going to subvert the professionalism of the army and police, because there'll be no professional army or police if the entire
So you guys heard that from that rat, right? That political rat is talking about the police. Please, 1 second. We're on tonight. Thomas Anderson is not on. Thomas Anderson, whenever he's on, he's on. He's busy working behind the scenes. He's doing his thing. Thank you, Monica, and good evening. Now let's continue. You heard what Jack Deal said about the police, about the army, and that they're notorious. The PPP is notorious. They don't like the military, They don't like the police. But what they're doing, they're using them along with some drug lords and some money launderers and gold smugglers. We know who those are, right? This guy's this so-called legitimate businessman. And so the PPP's modus operandi is to control the armed services, control those guys, give them a little pittance here and there, give them a little promotion, and they use them, those who are inclined to be used, mind you. So they don't like the joint services. They don't like the GDF. It is the same Jack Deal who basically got rid of about 5 or 6 very senior ranks of the military. Only in Guyana these things can happen, and the military just sat down. And they just said, okay, take away my stripes, put me on leave, demote me or whatever. And now I'm just saying, only in Guyana these things happen, and these guys just walk away. That's all I'm saying, right? And then we gone now to what Jack Deere said. They basically accused the military of kicking down PPP supporters' doors and all manner of things. You heard Jack Deere, you heard them. And that if they link up with the coalition, this is who is going to protect you guys? And when they say you guys, they have a saying called whistle, what is it, dog whistle or whatever. We know. But before we get our guest on, I want to go straight to the lawyer. This is what Jack Deere said. And in this speech, he basically said, look, what if when they go to Port Moran, they go to Manripo, listen to the places he's mentioning. Listen to the places he's mentioning.
Right across Guyana, when the ministers to come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
When they come to the communities, whether it is in Berbice or Essequibo and Linden or in South Georgetown or Agricola or in Emnor or Port Morant, the people of Guyana should treat them as illegal. I said they should walk behind them, chase them out of your community.
So let's get to our attorney. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Ms. Washington.
Good evening, Mark, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. Thank you.
Good
You
evening,
guys are so
everyone.
lively. Thanks. Ms. Washington, you heard Jack Dio. Walk behind them. Chase them out. Chase them out. That is encouraging violence. Just my take. What is your take?
Exactly. My take is he is encouraging or inciting the public to engage in some sort of harassing conduct against public officials. And I think if you have this type of behavior coming from the head, what would you expect coming from the population? If somebody who is supposed to be leading the country is inciting a conduct that is unlawful, because to chase somebody out is you're telling somebody, even though they're in a public space, like, you're unwanted here, we don't need you here. And he's encouraging and harassing type of conduct, and that is not right. He's inciting the public to engage in unlawful conduct. And I think if you're having that sort of behavior taking place from the very head, then you could consider Guyana a lawless country, because there you have it. The head is telling people, the head of the PPP, telling the public, especially the Indo-Guyanese, to harass public officials and get them out. How are they supposed to get them out? I don't know. If he's telling them to use violence, use force, use whatever means necessary, it's a matter of how they interpret that. And I think it's conduct that shouldn't be encouraged. It shouldn't be condoned.
We know exactly what he's saying there. He's not saying that they should kneel down in front of those AP and UFC coalition guys when they were in office, kneel down and pray or bow or whatever. We know exactly what he was saying to his support base. It was basically violence. And that's exactly what it is. We've got to be straight up about it. This is what he was telling them. And that's exactly what you said, because when it's coming from the so-called head, what do you think those at the bottom are going to do? And that's exactly what those folks did in Bat Settlement and other places, right? And J.R. Crawford, they almost killed J.R., but we'll get into that shortly. This is what Jack Dio encourages.
Good, now you can see the real standoff. It's just part of the action, part of the real action. Part of the action.
So we got some videos in terms of what Jack Dio and the PPP have been encouraging. Violence. That's what it is. Violence. Mr. Crawford, what's your take on the duplicity? That when members of the opposition now talk about what the truth is and how the PPP operates, they get vexed and they talk about who's preaching violence and terrorism and these sort of things. Your take, Mr. Crawford?
Look, I've said it before that it's going to come down to a violent situation. And when the PPP was in opposition and they were encouraging their supporters to disrespect the government at the time, they like to create violent situation. When that situation turns against them, they cry wolf. And eventually, their own wars are going to come back and haunt them. But I am seeing that the people who are going to chase them aren't the coalition support base. It is their own support base that is going to end up chasing them. Because if you look at the behavior of this current administration, it is not appropriate, it's not nice. And eventually, the pot will boil over. They think the Guyanese are still thinking the way they were back in the old days. Technology has moved up. People are more abreast with what is going on. People are more aware of the sufferings going on in different societies. And soon, people will come together, Black and Indian, and go after any administration, Indian-led or Black-led, that is oppressing the general population. And I wouldn't be surprised.
Well said. Well said. And we wouldn't be surprised. It happens all over the world. We saw what happened in 2001, 2002 at Albion Village under quarantine, when supporters, mainly supporters of the PPP regime, were protesting in front of the station. They blocked the roads, they burned tires on the road, whatever else they did. They almost burnt the police station down, Albion police station. They beat a magistrate up. They threw a magistrate's car into the trench. They almost beat a then sitting minister of Home Affairs, that notorious Ronald Godraj and so forth. Nobody. And it is quite possible that we can see a repeat of these things. Because as we speak, not only opposition supporters are feeling the squeeze, PPP regime supporters are feeling the squeeze because corruption is rampant and nothing is really trickling down to the ordinary man, be it PPP supporters or coalition supporters. It's just not happening. And I'm glad that you've mentioned that. Mr. Caesar, something from you, sir.
Again, good evening, Mark. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
To Kumo Ugonse and what he said, I agreeing with what he said because the situation called for such a statement. We can rebuff the statement, we can try to ostracize him, but you can only do that if there is not facts to back up that statement. And there's a lot of facts to back up the statement that he made. So I just want to make that point very, very clear. And also just to add also that we have to remember at election time what Mr. Jagdeo did say, that if the election is not called in the correct way, meaning that it's not called for the PPP, Guyana is going to be ungovernable. That to me is a terroristic statement. So if the PPP want to talk about statements, they need to start with their first vice president. And I know Shelon did say earlier, about, the head and what you hear from the head. I don't believe Jagdeo is the head. I feel the way he acts, his behavior, his dictatorial behavior, I just feel like if he's the tail, and the Guyanese people have to start understanding that they cannot continue to be fooled by this one individual who continue to stoke the egos of the PPP supporters and is stoking violence in the country. It's been 25 years now, literally, just about 25 years, which is a quarter of a decade since the PPP has been in power in Guyana. And has the country gone anywhere? I can't say that they've done absolutely nothing, but they have not done much to the people of
That is. I cut you while I go back to our attorney here, Ms. Shellon, Washington. There's a reason why I cut you. You cannot, and I wouldn't sit here and accept anything from anyone who says that the PPP has not done anything during the almost 27 years that they've been in office. They have done a heck of a lot, and we've got to be honest with ourselves. They have increased in terms of the unemployment rate in Guyana. They have increased in terms of drug dealings in Guyana. They've had the most drug lords in Guyana, extrajudicial killings in Guyana. The most corrupt regime was under the PPP. the most notorious set of individuals, the most individuals, government officials whose visas were revoked by the US, the Canadians, and the British. Sitting commissioners of police have had, and deputy commissioners of police, and very senior commissioners of very senior police officers have had their visas revoked, and all manner of things. So they have done something bad for the country. We continue to see that. Guyana, in terms of money laundering and all these things, they didn't want to address the issue at all. Why? Because majority of those folks who are in the private sector commission are money launderers, are wanted men by U.S. law enforcement agencies. So they've done something, Mr. Caesar. Let's go to Miss Shellen Washington now. Here it is that this woman, along with others, have protested. They're calling for justice to be served in terms of what is happening in the country. Justice. They want justice, and rightly so. Suddenly we see this new thing about the PPP, charging people for acts of terrorism. What is your take from a legal standpoint, Ms. Washington?
Mark, I think this is just another form of oppression. And one of the things we have to understand is when an installed government or a government that the mass looks at as not being legitimate is in power, one of the ways in which they can control is by forcibly removing people from certain environments, arresting them. They use the law to oppress you. And I think this is the kind of thing that we're seeing here, is that the government of Guyana is using the law to oppress the populace. Terrorism. First of all, what is terrorism? And especially as it relates to the context of Guyana, is going and protesting peacefully considered an act of terrorism, or can it be considered an act of terrorism? In every other country, in every other developed country, an act of terrorism is something that is done to endanger the population, either by attempting to take the life of a mass group of people, or using threats or some sort of violence. And if protesting is now being considered an act of terror, I would like for the government of Ghana to define what is terrorism and to show us the statute that they're using to prosecute this woman as having committed some sort of act of terrorism. But this is the kind of thing, like I said, when a government is lawless, this is the kind of thing you have them to use the police force to initiate lawless act and to oppress the population, because it's just no way, Mark. And, I just want to go back quickly to something I heard Caesar said that I mentioned. When I said the head, I specifically said Jagger was the head of the PPP. And even if I reference him as the head, that's what he is. And that's what he's using his platform to represent or to portray himself as. And that's what he's recognized on the international platform as one of the head in the government, even though we have Afan Ali as the president. So I don't think any statement that I made is incorrect, because that's what he's being portrayed. That's what he's being looked at in the international community. So even though we might consider him illegal or installed, that's still, you cannot change that fact until the people of Guyana arise, get up, and start to fight for what's rightfully theirs, and fight that democracy must be enforced. But
attorney, you know how the PPP, thanks for setting that record straight. You know how the PPP love, the Jack Dales and them, they love to twist things around, right?
Right.
It said that the people should get up in a democratic way. They should rise in a democratic way and stand up for their rights. You know, they're going to twist things around.
I don't want it.
There's a new word that they have.
I don't want anyone taking my words and twist it and said, I said that the people must fight against anything. They must arise for democracy. They must push that the government of Guyana must allow for democracy to prevail. Nothing else.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because they have this new word now, extradition, as though when they mention that, people must tremble, people must be afraid, like, oh my gosh, we're afraid. Because where we live, of course, freedom of speech exists. Unlike Guyana, when there is freedom of speech and there's protest, as we're seeing in the case of this young lady, what terroristic acts are they talking about? What could she have done? And this nonsense has got to stop. What terrorism? What acts of terrorism?
But you see, Mark, this is the only country in the world I feel like the United States. That's why a lot of people just leave Guyana because of this type of madness, where you can express your opinion and you wouldn't be prosecuted for it. You're not trying to incite anything, but you're saying that the what is right should be done. And if people are protesting because they feel like we need democracy in Guyana, we need freedom of speech in Guyana, we need things to be done in the right manner. The world is looking now, and as J.R. Crawford said earlier, there's technologies all over. Everyone has a smartphone, so now nothing is hidden, nothing is undercover. If the Black Clothes Squad goes out and they unlawfully kill people, somebody could be recording. And I don't feel like it would be fair that if somebody is peacefully protesting and they're telling the crowd, we have to press to get the government by peacefully protesting. We're not using guns, we're not using violence, we're not saying anything to incite the public to do wrong. Why is that considered an act of terrorism? And even better yet, how is that defined of an act of terrorism under the law? And I think the government of Guyana needs to wake up and they need to allow freedom of speech, even though if you think somebody is saying something against you and you're offended, you have to allow the public to express their opinion. That is what makes America great, because nowhere in the world somebody could go and criticize the president and no repercussion. You can do that here. You criticize the president if you feel like they're not performing their functions effectively, if you feel like they're not representing the people or they're not performing their job. But in Guyana, on the other hand, if someone feels like the president is not representing a particular group, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, the government is offended, people in the government are offended, and then they want to get you arrested and claim that you committed acts of terrorism. And that's not right. It has to change. They have to realize freedom of speech is an intricate part of democracy. So you have to allow people to express their opinion, express their views without you getting into your feelings about it. It's not about you. It's about doing what's right to represent the people.
And they do get into their feelings. Jack Dale does get into his feelings. Irfan Ali does get into his feelings indeed, and that is how they're running and ruining the country. Uh, it baffles me that magistrates in that country would sit on the bench and allow these charges to pass through their court without any sort of comment. This young lady was placed, I believe, on $200,000 or $300,000 bail. What acts of terrorism? Where is the evidence? I don't know. Crawford, what's happening, sir?
Mark, when you look at all these frivolous charges that's coming up against one group of or one ethnicity, this should serve as a wake-up call to the people who do not support the PPP party. All of this oppression that's going on since in the early 2000s, we haven't seen any intervention from international countries that are supposed to be the guardians of democracy in growing nations.
Let me say this before you continue, Mr. Crawford. The West have intervened. They have revoked visas of sitting ministers. Then Minister of Home Affairs, Ronald Gadraj, had his visas revoked by the ABCs. Clement Rohi, who sits there at GCOM as a commissioner, has had his visa revoked. He promised the general public that he was going to let individuals know why his visa was revoked. I may know why. Some other members of the public may know why. It could be It could be in the direction of supporting terrorism. I don't know. But he has never explained that. The Canadians have stopped and blocked Irfan Ali from entering Canada during the course of the elections. So it is not that they have not acted. Scores of so-called businessmen have had their visas revoked. One particular so-called businessman is currently fighting his visa revocation right now in court. He has 2 female lawyers fighting, aggressively fighting for his visas to be restored and all manner of things. The question is, since we have discovered oil, that Guyana now has oil, why is it that the ABC countries aren't being forceful against the installed, corrupt, racist PPP regime? That's the question. Sorry I interrupted you, sir.
Good.
Go right ahead.
Let me clarify that, and let me contradict you. I don't care who got their visas revoked during that time. The international people, the first world, so-called first world individuals, have never stepped in to stop the destruction mentally on people who do not support the PPP party. And by not stepping in back then, has destroyed the fortitude of the people who do not support this party. People has gone to a point where they're fed up, they're disgusted because there's no help. And this is to serve notice to primarily the black people of this country that if you want democracy and you want democratic rights to be respected, the only way to get it is go in and get it for yourself. Do not sit and wait for no international bodies. We have been raped in the forestry, in the bauxite, in the diamond, in the gold, now oil. These people keep sitting and waiting, thinking that a foreign entity is going to intervene in their freedom. If 500 years of slavery is not enough to motivate a set of people, nothing else will. So don't come and tell me about Gadraj and Roy and Irfan visa and all. These things don't matter. That's petty. What about the destruction of the people that don't support this administration and what they're doing? What about the people who refuse to take the hustle money? What about the people who refuse to be walked upon? What about the people who don't have opportunities to get loans in a bank, proper job, proper respect? What about the people in the villages that don't get irrigation? Why can't the international people say to these people, listen, you're a developing nation. If you don't treat all citizens across the board equally, you're not going to have any monies for any improvements. So when you look at it, I don't care. Maybe I'm a rebel. If you can't respect all citizens of Ghana, you're doing something wrong. And we have seen a lot of people, including our own coalition supporters, who ran off Mr. Granger and who badmouthed him at every beck and call. He never said, I'm going to only improve coalition support areas. You could speak to 100 PPP supporters, and if they're honest enough, 99 will tell you Mr. Granger did a lot more in their community than the black community because he wanted to be fair across the board. People of Guyana need to hold every single politician, regardless of which side of the aisle they stand on, accountable to be respectful to the needs of every single Guyanese, regardless of what party you support. There is no need for a certain ethnic group or people that do not support the PPP to be oppressed in this day and age. We are not back in the 17 and 1800s. And eventually, I'm saying this for years, and this thing is going to blow. The war is going to erupt, and mark my words, the Indian people are going to start the war against the very Indians. And the black is going to follow suit because people are tired of being oppressed and not given opportunities. Why must 90% of Guyanese suffer and only 10%? Look at the damn Palmyra project. People were handed contracts. It wasn't put out there to be bidded upon. How can you say that this country is progressing in a fair and democratic manner when it's a buddy system?
Well said, Mr. Crawford. The word war, these people don't like these things. When we talk about war, we simply means picking up the Bible or picking up the Bhagavad Gita or
Mark,
the Quran and read. 1 second.
Mark, let me interject 1 second. Let me just clarify something. Let me clarify this. Let me clarify this.
I know. 1 second.
The war
1 second.
will be caused by the bad attitude of the ones who are entrusted with leadership and growth of this country.
Look,
if I behave like an idiot, I will have to pay the price.
1 second. We're not afraid to use certain words here at all. But we got to break these things for these knuckleheads at Freedom House, you know. They don't know better. They've not gone to proper universities, IFLAT and all these different things. Some of them only have probably one CXC like lips and so forth. We understand that. That is why we got to break these things down for these people, Miss Washington. They don't know better. They just don't know better. And anytime there's a program to counter their stupidity, the first thing they jump up on a podium and talk is that they're preaching violence and they're preaching racism and all manner of things. All manner of things. W-A-R. Walter Anthony Rodney. WAR. W-A-R. Walter Anthony Rodney. Mr. Caesar, your take on what's happening, the destruction of Guyana under the PPP regime. The ABC countries are silent, maybe because of oil, maybe because of big business deals. We don't know yet. We just don't know. They are silent. Maybe some of them have whispered to some leaders in the opposition to stay quiet, and the leaders in the opposition are staying quiet. Your take on what's happening in the country, please.
Yeah, well, Mark, as we on a daily basis, as we look, we see the fabric of Guyana continues to be destroyed. The PPP is having their way, of course. And I must say, if the U.S. ambassador continues to travel with the finale to different meetings and all these different things, these different meetings and different stuff that he has to attend, it doesn't give a good look, you know. And the United States has been just about always known to be a functioning democracy. And if a functioning democracy, you know, have their ambassador to Guyana, you know, seeing what's going on in Guyana, and you know, we preach democracy all the time.
You think Sam Hines could get to travel with President Biden?
Not a chance. Not a chance. He wouldn't even get to the steps of Air Force One.
He wouldn't even. I don't. Well, he'd probably get to where they're serving food, and that's it. Sample the food, and he's gone. Miss Washington. Back to Miss Washington in terms of how these people are governing that country with rampant racism and corruption and all these manner of things. How does that make you feel, ma'am?
Mark, I've always been vocal about the inequalities of distribution of wealth and resources in Guyana, and what I would like to see for the country versus what is happening now. And I think one of the biggest mistake that Guyanese has made over the years, and this is repeatedly, is not fighting hard enough in terms of more protests, getting into the street and protesting peacefully. That is, let me emphasize the peaceful protest in order to get what they're entitled to, which is the right as Guyanese to live in a democratic society. And I think that is something that's not going to come by just sitting at home and hoping for changes to happen, because changes doesn't come easily. Changes comes
at a price.
Constant, and you have to be persistent, and you have to continuously press the government, press who is there to ensure that there is some sort of democracy. And every time Guyanese sit back during elections and they allow fraud to take place at the polls, they allow fraudulent ballot of dead people or people who migrated to end up in the ballot box, as long as they continue to allow this and not, remain in the street and continue to protest, continue to press, continue to advocate for righteousness, for justice, this type of stuff will continue. We'll continue to see dead voters. You will continue to see absentee voters. You will continue to see a lot of different types of corruption at the poll. But if Guyanese recognize and they band together, they come from Buxton, they come from Linden, they come from Berbice, and they all just flood the streets and for days and months, and they just continuously protest. Civil rights didn't come easy in the United States, as you could recall some of the history here of Martin Luther King, how they organized these protests, and they peaceful protests, that is, they went in the street, and it didn't come without some sort of oppression. And as you can see, Guyanese are being oppressed because they're being charged for terrorism, where they're just advocating for what is right. And I'm pleading with the government of Guyana to please allow Guyanese to protest peacefully.
No. We don't have to plead with them to
They
help with
need-
them.
They
People
need
just
to.
protest. But what they do, they drive fear into people, charge them for fictitious, acts of terrorism and all sort of nonsense. And the biggest terrorist they get right now in that part of the world is the PPP. The biggest terrorists they are. Gun smugglers, drug dealers, you name it. All, for the most part, are part of the PPP.
Right.
And you'll be surprised as the biggest gun smugglers in Guyana. Look at the gun dealers in Guyana. Check out who they are. Check out their backgrounds. Look at these so-called businessmen. Some of them are claiming that they're philanthropists and all manner of crap. I noticed, and I want to bring to the attention of Caesar and JR, because I'll take the discussion into this direction here now, because I'm wondering, why is it that they are so quiet, the opposition, as it pertains to the elections petitions? Here it is. We have a Romel Harinandan. Whatever he's saying here, do jagabats and trench crappos, frogs, you find any SOPs yet? I don't know if he's asking the jagabats or whatever, or the trench crappos, whether they have found the SOPs, or he's asking coalition supporters. If in fact he's asking coalition supporters if they have found the SOPs, let me say to Harinandan, that the PPP is the installed regime. They have all the evidence. And if they have evidence that those SOPs were corrupt, don't you think they would have rushed to the court to ensure that those elections petitions are heard? Who do you think, Mr. Harinandan, don't want the elections petitions to be heard? It is not the coalition. It is not Aubrey Norton. It is not those guys in the AFC done with. But it is still not those guys in the AFC. It is the PPP who is afraid of the elections petitions to be heard. But Mr. Crawford or Mr. Caesar, let's start with you. Why do you suppose that we're not hearing much, if anything at all, from the coalition concerning the elections petitions?
Well, Mark, as we have seen over time, it's been, a consistent tendency of the coalition to, have an iron in the fire and all of a sudden allow the iron to could get cold. So this is a perfect example. I expect them to be still, trying to get these petitions to be heard. I think the CCJ shut down one of them, I think the other one is still in the courts. Well, we know, Mark, it's been a history that when you bring petitions in Guyana, it takes a while. Sometimes we go to another elections and the petitions still have not yet been heard. I think it would take the people of Guyana, as Shelon said, to get out there and protest consistently, and push this government to elections. That's what it'll take. Those petitions, and with the opposition we have, Mark, I don't see those petitions being heard before 2025. I'm sorry.
It's like we don't have an opposition. And then when we talk, some people get vexed. We just don't have a strong enough opposition. We have a photo take out opposition, post for photographs, and that's it. Mr. Crawford, why are they so silent when it comes? Some of their supporters may argue that what you want the court to do, but people's supporters can come and force a regime or force the court. Elections petitions should be a priority of any country, a priority of any judicial system. Ms. Washington, a priority? It's not being treated as such.
I agree, because it's supposed to be heard expeditiously according to the language in the statute. And the reason for that is to avoid a situation where you might have illegal or illegitimate government in power for too long. So it's really important that those petitions be heard very, very quickly to deal with any issue that might be proven before the court.
Expeditiously. It should have been dealt with already. We are reminded of the 1997 elections, where 4+ years after it was vitiated by, guess who? Claudette Singh. Claudette Singh said that's it. And in March of 2001, that is how they had to call fresh elections, because the court ruled. The court ruled 4+ years after. Guyana is not a real place, man. Mr. Crawford, what's happening, sir? Elections petition? Why are they so quiet?
Mark, the entire leadership structure of the coalition, or what is left of the coalition, at this juncture, they all need to resign. I don't care who or what their contribution is. There are very few MPs who are doing what is expected of them as representative of certain constituents. When you look at the direction and the loss of resources and unexplained behavior of our finances, and you have an opposition who some are mumbling that, oh, international people said to be quiet. And the international people do not belong to Guyana. They belong to a different land. They will tell you anything because somewhere along the line, they are getting a benefit that you are not getting. When you have an opposition and you're not speaking up or you're not stepping up, you're doing the whole country a disservice. Election petitions, again, I am going to go at the international bodies. You're talking about making Guyana, this first world entity down the road. If you are not going to assist in making sure that the democracy and the democratic rights and the laws are respected, what do you think will happen? They're creating another turmoil country like in Africa or in Asia. The people of this country are not seeing that they're being used as pawn, and nobody really cares what happens to the 750,000 people here, as long as they get into the financial pockets of this country. We as Guyanese are not responsible. We are too selfish. We are too ignorant. We are hateful. We are always worried about what is in our bank account or how big our houses are. We're not worried about the future of our generations to come behind us. We are not a country that will want to leave a proper legacy for the younger generations to follow or to build upon. If we do not run by laws and stop those who are fleecing us, how are we going to build as a nation? Why do you think we are so backwards with all the resources than the rest of the countries in the Caribbean? Our mindset is bad. We have to change. We have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, wait, do I value myself, or are we just surviving? Are we here just to sport, or are we trying to build a nation? Are we trying to improve our education, or are we trying to be something worthy in the Western Hemisphere? We are just a group of people who are more concerned about personal wealth, running around, doing dumb stuff, and we can't lead. Many of us got into leadership, and we are not leadership materials. We can't do anything, but we are forcing the issue. And when somebody comes up to be a proper leader, they will go around and cut your throat from being in that position.
Let me say this,
and
Mr. Crawford,
one thing I want to point out as this issue is raised: an individual, Jaipal Sharma, I know that man personally. It surprised me that the coalition, the members are not using that man's talent to build the base for the next election that is supposed to be held. Maybe because he's not a buddy person. I would like to see the PNC as a multifaceted party. This black and Indian thing doesn't work. We need to be able to have members from different ethnic groups. That is the only way for us to beat this racial division.
Well,
and move ahead.
It starts with the people, Mr. Crawford.
That's exactly what I'm saying. We're too damn racial.
It doesn't, what most Guyanese love to, and this is being perpetuated by some individuals who just see it as a stardom kind of thing. People who talk about the State Department is going to do this, or Biden administration is going to do this, or whatever. I'll say this to you. America has one interest, and that's Americans' interest. And when they're in Guyana, they are protecting their own interest. They're not concerned about Babulal down in Blackbush Polder or Gray at Alnis Village or so forth, or whoever in Linden or Kokwani or Ituni. They're not bothered about that. Unless it's some sort of grave human rights violations, then it appears in the United States human rights document every year. Outside of that, if Guyanese, and Crawford has said it, you guys have said it, if Guyanese do not come together and stand up for what is right, democratic right, that's their right, stand up and fight against the many atrocities and the corruption and so forth in that country, don't expect the foreigners to do it. It starts with you guys at home. Do not expect a Sarah Ann Lynch to fight for your rights. Do not expect that. Do not expect the High Commissioner from Canada to fight for your rights, or the UK, the British High Commissioner to fight for your rights. It's not going to happen. And don't listen to people that said the State Department going to deal with them, or the Biden administration. For over 2 years, we heard the Biden administration is going to deal with them. To have a senior official representing the Vice President Kamala Harris to go to Guyana, sit down and talk, doesn't change things. You know what changed things? Is when 2,000 or 20,000 or 40,000 people hit the streets. That is when you get changes. Miss Shallon Washington, attorney at law. You're shaking your head.
Mark, I definitely agree with you. And in that same type of situation, I wanted to just quickly address one thing I heard JR mention about the opposition and Guyana not having a true opposition, and that they needed to resign. One of the things I've noticed, I'm not defending them in any way, form, or shape, but one of the things I've noticed, every single time the PPP gets into power, they harass the opposition. And I've seen one
second, Miss Washington, what did you say?
They harass the opposition.
Every time, and I agree with you 100%. Every time these bagoos are in office, they ruin the country. They allow drug lords and money launderers. Those are the people who are flourishing, not the ordinary people at Port Morant Market or Belvedere or Hampshire or wherever, or Manripo. Those ordinary folks are not the ones who are benefiting. Drug lords, and again, I cut you to say, I agree with you. Every time they're in office, they ruin the country. But continue, ma'am.
But I'm not defending the opposition. But I'm just saying, I think one of the things that causes the hesitation in them to do what is right and to continue to push and to press and to encourage the people to get out in the streets and to protest is the harassment. Because a lot of them were threatened with jail time. A lot of them were told that they misappropriate state funds, and there were a lot of trumped up charges against people from the opposition. I think some of those things push some of them to go into the state where they're just
if you're afraid if you're pussycats, don't get involved in politics to claim that you're representing the people. Remember back in the civil rights struggle, guys like Congressman, all of those guys, the Good Trouble Congressman.
Lewis.
Yeah, Mr. Lewis. And all these people. If you are a pussycat, don't represent me. I don't want pussycats to represent me.
I agree.
I want strong men and women to represent me, not pussycats gonna be afraid of, man, if I said this, I can get locked up or I
Mark,
can go to
that's
jail.
why.
We must have leaders who are willing to be locked up, who are
Mark,
willing
this
to
is
go up
why.
in the forefront,
This
who are
is
willing to be jailed. If we don't have such leaders or parliamentarians, don't talk to me. But go
This
ahead,
is
Ms. Washington.
why I said I'm not in any way defending them, but I was just trying to explain why is it we'll see situations like this where they're not standing with the people, they're not encouraging the people, they're not doing what they're supposed to do because of the fear of the harassment from the installed
They
PPP.
can't take lockups, they can't take jailing.
They're afraid.
Please.
They're afraid. They're fearful. And then the other thing is to Mark, if their hands are not clean, how are they going to stand up? And Guyana has a lot of people in the opposition without clean hands. But if they kept their hands clean and always did what was right, then we wouldn't be in a position where we'll be looking to them to do what is right, and they'll be backing down, because that's the position we're in right now. The opposition is backing down. I don't know where we're gonna find the right people, JR. I don't know where.
We find the right people when we get a chance to elect the right people, not these people who have been selected. But I won't say that majority of them don't have their hands dirty. They're not clean. There are some of them, yes, I agree. There may be some of them, but the bulk of them just don't know what they're doing. They're more into it for a show. It's just a show for most of them. But when it comes to nasty hands, dirty hands, dirty hands, filthy hands, nobody beats the PPP. Nobody beats the PPP. Absolutely no one. You were about to say something, Miss Washington. Go ahead.
No, I completely agree we know who the side is with the unclean hands, but I'm saying if the people in the opposition at all times, all of them, not just some of them, because we know that Granger was one of the most upright leader that Guyana's ever had. He was very upright, and there was a lot of things he shunned wrong. But then we still have some of the people there who didn't always do the right thing, and I think those are the ones who are quick to back down, or they are standing and rubbing shoulders with the opposition at this time. Right now,
some of them are still there.
I've seen a lot of photoshops with them rubbing shoulders with the PPP and praising them for things that they believe they've done, but they're not standing with the people anymore. They're not doing anything to.
I see your point. I see your point, and I agree with you 100%. Some of them are even trying to justify their hustling, to say that there's no black leadership. Some of them are hustlers, and they try to justify their hustling by saying that. But let me say, some folks in the opposition describe David Granger as a church man and church this. Gosh, if I'm to describe Aubrey Norton right now, Aubrey Norton comes across 10 times worse than Granger if Granger was a church man. I don't know if Aubrey is living in a church now. Aubrey want protest. Aubrey want nothing. He's trying to justify, we can't protest, we can't this, and we got to be peaceful, and I don't know. Aubrey, can we pray for you tonight, man? Crawford, let's touch now on the Ministry of Agriculture. They get equipment. They're going to give out free equipment now to their friends and cronies, not rice farmers. You're there on the quarantine. How are the farmers, Blackbush Pole and other places going on, man? How are they surviving, sir?
Well, what I've seen, and I've looked into it in depth. This 40 hours a month has put a real hit on the rice farming industry. It also is hurting the sugar industry, because a lot of the workers are getting this 40 hours and they don't want to do the real work anymore. I am seeing rice farmers are complaining about not having workers anymore. It's hard. People don't want to do the work anymore. So it's pushing the overhead in these industries higher, and it's causing a lot of frustration. And because we got to look back at the profit margin. It's very costly to be a large scale rice farmer. Sugar estate now, It's the same thing. People don't want to go and cut cane anymore because you get in that $40,000 a month doing practically nothing. And sometimes you got to look at it and laugh. Maybe God is putting this thing to fruition to bring the PPP back to their knees. Their own people are backing down. And what I've observed, and I know of numerous occasions, hire car drivers who are driving hire cars, and they're also employed as 40 hours a month workers, which is wrong. You're already having an income. There are households who don't have income, and they are not getting that opportunity. Or there are houses where several people from the same address are given that opportunity to get $40,000, where two houses down, nobody has an opportunity. Because it's more of a party alignment handout. And that 40 hours a week is creating a welfare state of mind in this country, which again will change our behavior for the worse as a nation. It's going to destroy us. So, when you look back at the way the PPP are doing these things, I say they're doing it by design to destroy the morals and the standards of our society and create us as welfare citizens, because they see that we are not fighting for our liberty, for our well-being. We are more comfortable taking handouts, and that is where they get to do whatever they want in the high places.
And you are correct about that. The handouts, the so-called handouts, the 40,000, these things, there's no accountability. It's massive corruption. Right now, Region 6 is the biggest and the largest corrupt region in that country. Corrupt, massive corruption going on there with some of those.
You have a lot of people in high offices that have these backdoor contract deals. A lot of machineries that are owned. You're finding these fly-by-night contractors now with all these ministerial connections.
Corruption.
And blocking farmers from using streets that they must use, while they themselves are using vehicles or machinery on the very pathways.
Mr. Crawford, they're stealing, they're thieving the money. Those so-called PPP leaders in Region 6 are so corrupt that only God knows. But it's just a matter of time before the rice farmers and other farmers in that region come to the realization that they're being taken advantage of. Mr. Caesar, people are silent about the massive corruption and racism, the apartheid Guyana, and so forth and so on. People are not coming out. Opposition is silent. Most of them, 95 or 98% of them are silent. Your take on where we're heading as a country, sir?
Well, I'm not sure where we're heading. Again, the opposition is very dormant. We've discovered oil, and I see the Guyanese people just continue to live in poverty. We're just focused on oil. Forget rice, forget sugar, forget bauxite, forget gold. That used to be our bread and butter, 2-3 years before the whole oil discovery and the extraction of oil began. But with this extraction of oil and the billions of dollars that's being poured into our economy, I don't see the life of the Guyanese people, the livelihood of Guyanese being improved. We're still in the same posture of being impoverished, and the government is not making any moves. Look, Mark, for example, Irfan, the president, came out and
no, we don't say that on this program at all.
The installed leader of the country came out and he gave a one-time offer to the nurses at the Guyana at the Georgetown Public Hospital, a bonus for Christmas. Those nurses have not received that bonus until now. But we, are planning to build a stadium in Berbice. So all the wealth that's coming into the country, it's not hitting the normal people that it should be hitting, right? It's just the rich continues to get rich. The poor, especially the poor who does not support the PPP, continues to be marginalized and impoverished. And we just keep moving that way. The opposition needs to get out there. We need to have meaningful protests. You know, they need to get on the ground. They need to edify the people, you know, encourage the people to come out. I think after the last election, I think it's really demoralized some of the coalition supporters. We need to rebuild those bridges with those supporters and get them back out. You know, when I see the protests now, I see the most I would see sometimes is 50, 60 people. Sometimes you'll get 300 depending on, you know, what
you hardly get 300 these days. You probably
correct.
get 3, 15, 13 or whatever. And
But
the only time some of these so-called members of parliament in the opposition would join a protest is when it affects them or their colleagues. That's when they jump out to call people to go out. Y'all come to court, y'all come out and protest. It is selfish, it is petty, and it is dangerous. We have Miss Washington back with us. We are looking now for closing remarks, but we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we want individuals in the New York, the tri-state area, the 5 boroughs and so forth to go out and support the law offices of Ms. Shelon Washington. We'll be right back with your closing remarks, gentlemen.
So this is attorney Shelon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right, ensure you call Ms. Shelon Washington, her law offices, dealing with all criminal matters. You can deal with divorces and other stuff. If you slip, you fall, you hurt yourself, you injure, whatever it is, give Ms. Washington a call. Mr. Crawford, your closing remarks, please.
The Guyanese people need to start to be responsible. And for us to have a better country, we have to start in the villages, then the NDCs, then it goes into the county, then we join forces to get a better country. If we are going to sit down and just throw our arms up in the air and say, you know what can we do? Then, you know, there's no reason for you to even be alive. And when you have members that are elected to serve the people, and they're collecting a salary, but yet, as Shelon said, that some may be afraid. If you're afraid and you're collecting the salaries, then you constitute a fraud. Do not take the people's money if you can't do the work for the people. My thing is, I've seen where people want to live together. We as Guyanese must realize that the politicians are just human. They're not superhuman people.
Most of them are humans. Some of them we see in the PPP are not humans. Irfan doesn't operate like human. Jagdev doesn't operate like human. So let's get that straight. But
yeah, but the reason why those guys could behave that way is because when you have people that are practically brain dead, running behind and doing stupid stuff, that is why you create a dictatorship. If you're supporting an entity and it does not improve your quality of life, it does not improve the community that you live in, why would I want to support that entity? I must not as an individual, be so selfish that I will be living good, going, buying whatever I want, and my neighbors are hungry. And if I can't uplift my neighbors, then I'm useless. I'm not an attribute to our society. Too often, we find Guyanese people who are so selfish. All they can boast about is how many cars they have, how big their houses are, and how much money in the bank. If that's all that you have, then you're very, very poor. You must be able to help people to come up in life. As long as you can help a few people up and to make them better than yesterday, you are an asset to your country. But once you're involved in all this fraudulent thing and thinking that is, I'm a selfish, no. Eventually, somebody's going to come after you for what you've got, regardless if it's clean or not. And we're going to see where this country, people are going to start to chase down these selective few who have gotten rich overnight. They're not going to be able to walk on the street in peace because times have changed. People are hungry. People are left wanting for so much things that they're not going to sit anymore. You're going to hear that businessmen, there's overnight businessmen, they can't trust anybody because of what they're doing and what they're involved in. But getting back to the real democratic process, our Guyanese need to stop looking at race. I've been saying it over and over. And they must come together for the common goal of making Guyana a better place for every single one. Do not follow leaders that are preaching division or using threat as a tool to live the high life. We must come together, make the sacrifice. Do not support people because you know them or you're afraid of them, and that's why you cast the support. We must look after our brothers and sisters, regardless if their hair are straight or twist, if they're light or dark. That is how we are going to build a better country. And do not look for international people to come in and help us. They're not going to come. They're going to come and rape us in the form of economic slavery, and we're not seeing it.
I think that message is loud and clear. We thank you so much for that message. The corrupt folks in the PPP at Freedom House and at Office of the President and so forth, they're not concerned about unity. They're not concerned about a unified Guyana. It's all about corruption, greed, corruption at every level, oil deals upon oil deals. And look at the folks who are benefiting. A bunch of corrupt money launderers, drug lords, and so forth. They're the ones who are benefiting for the most part, not the ordinary citizens. For the most part, they are benefiting. Now, I wish to address, because we usually get a bunch of crappos come out from God in heaven knows where. But most times I ignore them. Look at what Fat Soul, obviously the name suits him or her, could be Lick Lip, who knows, is saying, didn't Forbes Burnham prosect? Oh, brother, where these people come from, man? Where these folks come from? Didn't Forbes Burnham prosected the Indian people during his reign? Prosected who? Who were prosected? Who were the folks who got filthy rich under Burnham? They're behaving as though Burnham was no racist. You want to see racist? Look at Jack Dale and look at Irfan Ali. Forget of them hugging some black babies and so forth and so on. Those guys are the racists. These lagu bagus in office right now are the ones who prosected people. They continue to prosect people, right? Look at this. Look at these guys, man. If you can't spell properly, or you can't, don't come here, man.
I wonder what prosect means, Mark. The meaning of prosected.
We know what he means. Prosecuted. Yeah, they're prosected people. Didn't Burnham prosect people? Who are the people at Burnham prosected, quote unquote, prosected? Who are the people? I could name dozens of people that Yagdev and Irfan and all these Looney Tunes prosected. They prosected a lot of people. They prosected me. They're prosected economic process. Look, prosected, right? These guys are nuts. They're worse than Jim Jones and his followers. Caesar, briefly, give on to us what is due to us. Your closing remarks.
Yeah, my closing remarks is directly to Mr. Irfan Ali. His legacy thus far has been a legacy of oppression towards the people of Guyana, the people who do not support his government. He's the head of what I would call definitely a working
Oh, he's
dictatorship.
the head now. He's no longer
Yeah.
the tail. But go
No,
ahead.
no, no, Jack Dio was the tail. He's the head. He's the head. He's the head for sure. He's
Continue,
the
sir.
yes. I would still encourage, I always encourage people. I never try to discourage anyone. I would still encourage him. There's still an opportunity for him to engage the opposition and have meaningful dialogue about ways that they can move the country forward and they can do a better job providing for everyday Guyanese. That being said, I still hold the opposition accountable, as for leading the people who are not in support of the PPP, leading their own constituents. Those people are out there. They need leaders. They need forceful leaders. And, Mr. Norton, when he was elected as the leader of the opposition, everyone thought that he would be this forceful leader. But his posture has since changed. I would really like to see the old Aubrey Norton, because I think the old Aubrey Norton would have been a great solution to what's happening right now in Guyana. But I don't see that person right now, and I don't know what is the reasoning behind that. The party is growing weaker by the day. The party needs to be reinvigorated with some new leaders. Mr. Crawford, you should probably consider, doing something in the party. They need to reach out back to people like Basil Williams, Joseph Harmon. I know Mr. Harmon was not the best choice to leadership of the party, but he is one of the most excellent campaign managers that you will find out there.
Mr.
You
Caesar.
don't. Yes, Mark.
Your closing remarks, please.
Mark, let me finish. Go
ahead, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, but basically, to put it in a nutshell, Mark, in order for Guyana to move forward, all the people need to be on the same page. We need to stop voting according to race, and we need to vote to the issues of the country. We need to vote the issues that are important to us as individuals, issues that would move our country forward and provide a better life for the current people and even the future, their children to come. Guyana has a lot of potential, and I feel like if we all get together and we all work on one accord, we can manage our resources, our wealth, and manage our country, and we would be able to benefit more as a country. Right now, the country is just up for sale, Mark. Everybody's coming in and doing what they want to do. The gold business is out there. Gold is not even hitting the gold board anymore. It's just being smuggled away, and the focus is on oil. Let's get back to focusing on Guyana. Let's get back to focusing on its people. Let's get back to focusing on educating our people and moving the country forward. I rest my case to the night.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it indeed. I agree with you, Mr. Caesar. These vagabonds in office are not concerned about Guyana. It's what they can thief, and they do that every single day, and they give it to their friends and cronies, building condominiums, building whatever it is, house lots, hundreds of house lots, and big prime lands given to their friends and cronies. That is what they are about. They are a bunch of hustlers, a bunch of thieves, a bunch of crooks, racist individuals in this PPP regime. They're not concerned about Guyana. They're just not concerned. And that's a sad thing. And because of that, we have those Looney Tunes, most of them in the opposition, who are afraid to speak out. They don't do anything. And then you mentioned some names of individuals that you want back as leaders and as politicians to do something. When they were in office, yeah, we were hearing about them. For 2+ years, 3 years now, we don't hear anything about them. Where is Basil Williams? He gave up. Where is Harmon? He gave up. Where is Moses Nagamutu? He gave up. Where are some of the others who were basically benefiting every single day when they were in office? Where are some of those ministers? Where are most of them? Do you hear them speaking out against the atrocities and injustices and the corruption by this regime? No, they're not. They're just not speaking out. But when it comes to elections time, a lot of them are going to run back and try to hug the coalition supporters and say, oh, we love you. We love you guys. We love you guys. You know, I am watching them. I have some of them. Just like the US got a lot of those PPP guys on the watch list. I guess some of them in the coalition on the watch list. I'm not going to prosecute them. I'm just not going to prosecute them. Right? Again, whatever prosected means. These Looney Tunes. In the opposition, they get some of them as well. Miss Washington, I know you're busy. You've had a busy day. You have lots and lots of people who are making contact with you. You have tons of cases. God in heaven knows how is it that your day goes by. Being as busy as you are, dealing with lots of those divorce cases, criminal cases. I don't know if you're dealing with any extradition cases or whatever, but a lot of extraditions will be coming from Guyana very soon, from Guyana to the U.S. Your closing remarks, please, Miss Washington.
Before I give my closing remarks, Mark, let me just say to your viewers here that I am a civil attorney, not criminal law. So if you commit any crime, please do not call me.
Oh.
I only represent civil cases, okay? And then before I give my closing remark, I want to just say I would definitely endorse JR for president. He's such a humble person. And I think
one second. You endorse JR for president? 1 second. 1 second. 1 second, please. 1 second. We'll be right back. We'll just take this quick break. We'll be right back. Stick a pin right there. But this is the Looney Tune that's heading Guyana right now. We've got to take a break since you endorsed JR for president.
Guyana really nice. Guyana. It's a nice place.
Oh my God. JR has been my friend for so long, man. Go ahead with your endorsement and continue the closing remarks.
Anyway, like I said, I endorse JR. He's a humble person. I think we need somebody to run in that position who's very humble, and their goal is not just chasing after wealth. I think a lot of the politicians in Guyana are chasing after wealth. They're just looking to fill their pocket. And like I heard tonight, like a lot of them are just looking to have the best car, that, you know, the fanciest car or the biggest house. And I think the goal of any politician, any person who decides that they're going to take that role, it's a service role. It's a role that you have agreed to serve the people, to serve the community, to ensure that they're taken care of in terms of social services, welfare services, and all the necessary things that helps to make a country great. I think one of the things that most of the metropolitan countries or the developed countries have is good politics or good politicians who are able to force to get things done. And I think the lack of that thereof in Guyana is what is causing so much turmoil. And that's why we have the majority of the people are in the bottom. They're not above the poverty level. They're below the poverty level, as a matter of fact, in Guyana. And there are not many resources that they can turn to for help. So having said that, I would like to continue every time I come here, Mark, to encourage the people of Guyana to continue to protest, continue to be vocal about what you want to see for your country, continue to go in the streets and be vocal for that. You know, and I think knowledge is always power. And as long as you continue to get information that you need, and I think Mark's show is a great way for you to come and to listen to some of the things that is happening there, and for you to take things in matters into your hands and to go out peacefully and to continue to be vocal about the situation in Guyana. All right. Having said that, guys, I want to thank all of Mark's supporters here for your support. I love you guys. I continue to say how I appreciate all the support I've been getting from Mark supporters who are in Brooklyn, even the ones in Guyana. I've had so many of you called me and told me maybe a family member in Guyana. I didn't realize a lot of people from Guyana do watch Mark's show. And a lot of times people here in Brooklyn would call me and they would say, you know, a family member in Guyana provided this number to me. So I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for all of the support I've been getting. I appreciate Mark also for giving me the opportunity to be here on this show and to get to know you guys. And I want to say be safe out there in Guyana. To all the Guyanese people, be safe and continue to press for what is just and what is right. God bless you guys.
You know, and I want to, even though you haven't endorsed me, I just show you the kind of player that I am. When I say player, sorry, that I endorse you for Attorney General of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. You'll make a wonderful Attorney General. We haven't had a good Attorney General in the longest time. During that, who is it? Those guys who were brilliant lawyers. We haven't had an attorney, a qualified Attorney General in a very long time. I endorse you for Attorney General. Where are we going to put Caesar? We're going to put Caesar as housing minister. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much, Miss Washington. Thank you so much, Mr. Crawford. Thank you, guys, because, look, here's where I take my hats off to J.R. Crawford. Not because he's my friend for over 75 years, but because he's not afraid to speak out. He's right there. He's not compromised. He doesn't take contracts behind the scenes and these sort of things. He tells it like it is. If he has to eat milk and rice to survive, he does that. If he has to eat salt and rice to survive, he does that. He stands up on what is principle. And that is what I respect coming from a man or a woman or whomever. That is what I respect. I don't have that respect for most of those opposition members. Forget about those thieves in the PPP, but most of those guys in the opposition are basically a bunch of pussycats. They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid to be locked up. They're afraid to stand up for people's rights. They're all, for the most part, about themselves. I'll single out a few of them who want to fight. And those are the ones that are not given the opportunities to do that. But they should seize that opportunity. The most of the times we find that these opposition politicians are speaking out. You watch when they come to the US. They get mouth, they speak out, and this is what gonna happen. But when they go back to Guyana, they become again pussycats. We have a pussycat opposition for the most part, and I really do mean that. I've got to go. My name is Mark Tiger. Pussycat Tiger. I love you guys. God bless all of you. Until we meet again tomorrow. Same place, same time. Somebody has reminded me that Freddie cried at Brickdam lockups. That is so true. Ogunsi, let's continue to pray for that brother. And I was telling somebody, Miss Washington and gentlemen, that I shouldn't say that all, but they have given me all the charges in Guyana, from treason to sedition to conspiracy to commit murder to all protesting charges, all manner of things. I think the Guinness Book of World Records should be watching. All manner of things. It's the same dreaded. It's the same disgraceful. It is the same racist PPP regime. It's the same corrupt PPP regime. It's back again. Do not be fooled. All that glitters is not gold. Do not be fooled by some of them who give you a little money, some of them who drive around in fancy sports cars and all these manner of things, parading their wealth around, pretending as though people are envious of them. For what? Be careful with those folks. They don't mean well. Until tomorrow, same place, same time. Thank you, guys. I'm reminded, by the way, that the elections petition will be heard in the appellate court, Guyana Appellate Court, on March 22nd. We will carry that live right here on 107.1 FM. Miss Washington, thank you. And I do hope a lot of you call Miss Washington. She deals with a lot of civil cases and divorces too. She will take your calls. Mr. Crawford, thank you, sir, for your service.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for giving us, the people, what is owed to us, Mr. Caesar. An accountant.
Good night, Mark.
Profession. Thank you all. God bless.
Good night.
Yeah. And to all our listeners, God bless you as well. So long.
So, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Guyana really nice. Guyana. It's a nice place.
Oh my God, oh my God.
Guyana really nice. Guyana. It's a nice place.
Oh my God, oh my God.